Welcome back, peeps. Thanks for joining in again for another episode. You won't know this because it'll just flow right through, but this is the first episode after taking a much needed month off. It felt so good to just take a break and not have to be constantly like throwing out content and just doing stuff fast pace. So fast pace is good once in a while, but I think it's nice to take a break. I think it's necessary. Let me just say that it's necessary to take a break once in a while and just kind of regroup, let your brain relax a little bit. Also, I think this ties into today's episode because I want to talk about how past triggers or traumas can really keep you stuck from moving to the next thing. And I think a lot of overwork is also a trigger that a lot of people, I've been interviewing a lot of people, and it's that performance driven and just, doing God's work and doing all these good things and going and pushing forward and being strong and being bold. Is that coming from a past trigger of something that you feel like you have to do because either that's been told to you or something that you have seen from your childhood, and it's keeping you stuck in like who you were really meant to be? So I just want to talk about the everyday habits that might be keeping you stuck in a negative way. And I find that a lot of women that I work with too, that happens a lot, where they're just so stuck in this trauma brain and like these triggers that someone can say something, or they see a movement somewhere, or there's something that happens and they freeze, and they don't want to make any changes in their life because they're so afraid of the what ifs. And for me, the what ifs are the things that have always moved me to a better place, even when I was scared, because I knew it was something that was going to be good for me. I'm not talking about things that are dangerous. I think people always get confused sometimes when you talk about making changes and being brave and doing it scared. It's not doing it scared because it's scary, dangerous. You're doing it scared because it's scary and new. So there is a difference. And then, are you allowing your scared feelings to control you or prevent you from being the confident, strong woman that you're meant to be? The one that God has, He has this door like waiting to be opened. He's saying, it's right here. I have this for you. Please walk through it. He's not going to push you through it. I'll tell you that right now. I see women year after year after year posting these things on Facebook, and I'm like, girl, you've been talking about that for 2 years and you haven't done anything different. And I get it. Like, you're scared. You have like triggers in you where you start to do something and it feels uncomfortable and it brings you back to a time when it was unsafe and it was uncomfortable. And so your brain is telling you that's not safe. It's not good. Don't go there. Don't do that. And so you don't. But sometimes we have to push through and break through that uncomfortable feeling. So I had seen some posts and reels this week on social media, and it just got me thinking about how we hold back sometimes from the things that scare us, or we're so hypercritical of it that we automatically we will critique it to death. We'll just say like, all the reasons why we shouldn't, and then still stay in the same place. So let's find some ways where we can slowly get to a thinking pattern. Instead of automatically going to the negative place, we can do something that is moving us forward so that we can live a freer, full life and be content with where we are. So one thing I want to preface is I'm all for recognizing when something feels off. I think our intuition, our Holy Spirit, like I believe in that. I live by that. Like I have been saved from situations, and I have walked through some amazing situations by feeling my intuition, Holy Spirit, like this does not feel good, or like, whoa, like I have to do this. It feels so right. And I can just feel like God saying, yes, go. I think the mistake people make is sometimes they're overly cautious with their prayer time, in the fact of not overly cautious praying. Hear what I'm saying. Always need to pray first, always need to stay in that prayer life. But I think people get stuck in that prayer life and not move. So I think that God without action is just dead. Like you're praying all these things and then you just like keep doing the same thing and you don't take chances where he's actually putting people in place for you. He's putting situations in place for you. I have watched people completely sabotage what could have been great for them because they overthink it and overcritique it. And all along, it was like God was like, here it is. It's right here on a platter for you. Here you go. I put these things in place. Wait, what are you doing? You're not taking it? Oh, you're going to go back and pray about it. Okay. It's hard to decipher because I know like sometimes people have to go back and pray and go back and pray and they want to make the right decisions. But here's the thing is when you're trying to make a perfect decision, there is no perfection in that. And I don't want your triggers and your traumas to stop you from to be like so hypersensitive to everything of like, well, I'm not feeling a big feeling and I'm looking at this situation and saying, but there was this person that came before you and said that they could help you with this. And then you had this situation over here where you had, someone was offering you, a donation for this, or there's this situation over here where this was offered to you and you said no because you felt like it wasn't right. And I'm like, but I think that was maybe a divine intervention of some kind to help you move to a different place, and you denied it. And now here you are a year later sitting here with your triggers, with your traumas going, I'm scared of the world. I'm scared to make a decision. And I'm so sad. I saw a post where this lady was still in the same situation where she was last year. And she's actually now getting sick. And I thought, man, you made this move. You knew you wanted to do this different thing. You wanted to break out of your shell and out of the traumas and things you had gone through. And I thought that was such a great thing. And then she just got stuck. It's like she took the one step, but she didn't want to take three more. And so now she's like, here I am. I'm still waiting. I still want these things, XYZ. I believe she wants to write, but she's not plugging into anything to move her into that forward momentum because I think her triggers make her scared. I am cautious too. It's in my DNA. Like anyone that knows me, if you know me by now, I'm an HSP, which is a highly sensitive person. I'm extremely cautious. I use common sense to see what my emotion is telling me. I feel things hugely around the world and closely in my friendships. I can't help that. That is like, God has made me that way. I can look at someone and have a conversation and my husband goes, I seemed a little, and I was like, yeah, he was. He's saying this, but I can feel his body movement. Like literally I feel people's emotions. It's exhausting. We went to a graduation party this last weekend and I was there in a room full of people that I didn't know. I knew the person that graduated and their parents and a couple of people, and that was it. My husband knew some more. And he was having the greatest time. And I was feeling all these emotions off of everyone. And I was like, okay, just breathe, like get a drink, like eat some food. It's good. And we got through all of that stuff. And I looked at him. I was like, yep, it's time to go. I was exhausted. It's exhausting because I feel people's emotions without them saying anything. And if they say something, I really dive in because I'm super interested in people. And, that's who God made me. But I have to be very aware of not letting that overpower me. So the old me would have been there for 15 minutes and said, we got to go. We got to go. This is so scary. The new me was like, okay, let's meet some new people. Let's breathe through this. I went to the bathroom for a minute to just regroup. I have tools now that will help me with my highly sensitive personality. That's okay. Like, we don't all have to be these social butterflies. We don't all have to be so meek that we won't ever go out. There were triggers in my life where I got embarrassed by people's comments from a very young adult, like I would say teen years, that really triggered me going into like a public arena, because I remember sitting in rooms where I was the target of bullying, and people just loved to tease me, and I was the girl that could shut down, and so I would take it and it would kill me inside. And so triggers, right? So I could prevent myself. Now I'm old enough, I could say, I'm going to be a recluse. I'm not going to go out and put myself with that. I'm not going to do a podcast. I'm not going to write a book. I'm not going to go out and speak. But there is a higher power that, is guiding me. There is this godly power that is telling me, this is what I want you to do. Because of your sensitivity, people will gravitate towards that. So it makes me brave in that moment. But as I've said before in other episodes, I'm exhausted when I get done with these kind of things. So you just have to know your limits, but it doesn't mean that you keep your triggers like forefront and then not move, because anything that you've experienced, now your body is feeling like it's unsafe. I'm not going to take any chances. I'm telling you, take some chances, especially when things are presented to you in a beautiful way where it's like, wow, that seems like a really good opportunity, but I'm so scared, and I just know from past triggers that has not worked, so I'm not going to do it. Don't be like that. You have to believe that God is moving you in a different direction to make your life calmer, not more chaotic. Life will always be chaotic on its own. I think that we have to recognize that not everything is a test. We just had some friends that got stuck at the Delta airport after being at a conference, and they're two beautiful friends of mine, and they literally got stuck for 2 days, and it was very triggering for them. But my one friend, Christina, shout out to Christina Custodio, this morning she posted, not everything is, some people were telling her, oh, you were probably just supposed to be there. You probably had this amazing encounter. Like, it was like meant to be. And she said, no, like nothing major happened. I didn't, minister to anyone at the airport. I didn't have any kind of encounter that was like, oh, this is why we got stuck for 2 days. She goes, no, we just got stuck for 2 days. The plane got delayed, then it got canceled. And she goes, and now I'm home. And I just think, how we acted in that moment. Now, if you go back to past triggers and you start freaking out, what would you look like in other people's eyes as a Christian? Ooh. They would be like, oh, that person is a Christian? Okay, they're a little cuckoo, bonkers. She said how I acted during that situation. She didn't lose her cool. She wanted to, and she could have, but her and Mary laughed about it. They like made, the best that they could out of a horrible situation. And she said, it was just a situation. Sometimes not everything has, Jesus rap all over it, and you're supposed to be here at this time to have this thing happen. There was no divine intervention. And so I think that's the other thing is you have to remember is not everything, just because you feel like it's a triggering moment, it may not be a triggering moment. It just may be you're uncomfortable right now. And this is a time for you to push forward and be something different. Okay, so a couple of things that if you are finding out that you're reacting off of things irrationally, if you've experienced any triggering moments, you cut off taking any chances. Don't do that. just take some chances, especially if it's good opportunities. Take the chance. Do it scared is what I always say, and in a good way, not in a dangerous way. If you are constantly asking others for their opinions because you have to be right, you can't. You have to feel safe with everything around you. Everything has to be 100%. If you're doing that, you're just trying to shapeshift and fit into the room. That doesn't mean that everything is still going to be okay. And it may feel weird at first, but if you have a voice, that voice matters. And if not everyone agrees, you have to be bold and speak up if you think that this is something that you believe in. And then just say your piece and move on. So you don't always have to make sure that everyone agrees with you on everything. Also, you don't have to argue the point to the death. Just know that your voice matters. You overanalyze everything people say, again, not relying on your own judgment. If you collect data from everybody else and because you want to be the smartest in the room, more than likely you're going to irritate people and no one's going to want to really connect with you. You need to learn to listen well and come to your own conclusions. This will start moving you forward and setting free some of those triggering things, because having those conversations where not everyone agrees with you, and also that you don't have to pick apart everything that someone else says to try to make sure it's perfect and in the right place. You can release all of that pressure and just be you. When I started telling my opinion from an honest place, people resonated with it so strongly, it made me braver to keep doing what I'm doing. If you were the first one that put yourself down, to criticize yourself, not thinking that you measure up, that's a triggering thing. We have a tendency to do this silently in our heads, but we also do it in front of other people when we think they're going to do it to us, so we do it before they do it to us. We're so used to our moms putting us down that we forget that we don't have to live by that rule anymore. Do you actually think that God made everybody else smarter than you and better than you? He didn't. He made us all uniquely our own. And also he made us to be partners with other people and have a lot of love in there too. When we can share our hearts with others, it's such a beautiful way that you can be a catalyst to show others how to break those triggers. When you get to do that in your own life, then you are there. You can be compassionate in someone else's. You are scared of the future, and therefore you get stuck in the place where you are. I see this a lot. Women stay in jobs, in relationships, in houses, etc. for a really long time, even when they're not meant to be there anymore. The fear is that it's so scary somewhere else. I'm just going to stay comfortable and miserable here, and then that should be okay. That should be enough. You and I both know that it's not comfortable and it's not the best for you. And guess what? If you do move and it's something that you don't like, you have the ability to go back, not back to the bad relationship, but back to maybe a town that you moved out of. I've had friends that moved out of state and then said, you know what, I miss California. I want to come back to not the same town, but, back to California. Didn't really like where I was. And they did that because they had to move at the time because of a job transfer. And then they decided after they retired, like, I don't really want to be here. This isn't where I want to be. You have the ability to go back. They came back. They're so happy. Her and her husband, they just love where they are. They've met all kinds of different friends and it's good. So you're not stuck just because you made a bad decision or you've changed your mind or it's that time to just move to a different place. That is what life is. We have the ability to change and do different things. We don't have to stay the same for the rest of our lives. So terrified of change, absolutely. Everything triggers. Change is hard. Like Hello, I was kidnapped at 8 and taken to a new home. I'm terrified of change. Like, I don't like, I love having my home be the same. I don't like change. But over the years, I've learned that sometimes that change is really great. And in the ability to be able to get this second home to be closer to our grandkids, I actually love the new house that we have for our little, I guess it's a vacation house kind of thing, halfway, like part time house. It has been, we've had this new place for a year. We still get to come back here to our main home, but more and more when I spend time in this new place and I meet these new people, I'm like, I love it here. This is so great. But I would never have known that had we stayed safe and said, no, we'll just get like a little Airbnb, come see the grandkids right away, go back home. Now we can stay for a couple of weeks at a time. The grandkids actually want to come to that house. And they're always saying, which house are you at again? The far, far away house or the closer house? I'm like, the closer house. And so they'll say, can we spend the night? And that never would have happened had I been fearful and said, no, change is hard. Like, I don't like to move because, that takes me back to my 8-year-old little girl where I come home to a house that's empty and my mom saying we're leaving. And that just blew up my world. Like, I loved that home. I still think of that home and it breaks my heart because I loved that home, even though there was chaos in that home. I loved where I was, but I think over the years I've learned that just because I had that triggering moment doesn't mean that I can't move ever again. I have to stay, which is what I used to think. Once we get this house, we can never move because that's so scary. And then I would see something that would pull me. It was like, but what if? What if you could do this? And then I started dreaming, like, I can move to a different place. And in that time of my life, I think it would be good. Let's start looking towards that. And so every time I did that, we would find something, better and just more that fits our family at the time. It was really remarkable. We looked back at some of the houses that we've moved from, and then some that the one house that we raised our girls in, and then it was time to move from there. And so, just looking at your life and figuring out, like, where are the places that I can release those triggers that are holding me back and move forward. If you think that you're doing things wrong and then you apologize profusely, we've had a couple of people in our life where it's just like, oh my gosh, they drop a napkin and they have to apologize 50 times. And it's like, where is this coming from? You don't need to do that. It's okay. Apologize and move on. I've met a few people who do this like constantly. And it was like this one gal just probably said I'm sorry all day long. For the whole day we were hanging out with her, and everyone was looking at each other like, girl, what happened? Well, she had a lot of abuse in her family, and she was constantly apologizing because they were constantly telling her what she's done wrong and how horrible she was. And so she had this innate need to apologize to make people love her. And little by little, we were showing her, like, hey, it's okay. You don't need to apologize for every single thing. And also, we're all going to mess up. Everyone's going to mess up. Please stop. Again, this is that perfectionism. Stop trying to be perfect. And then you beat yourself up because it didn't come out perfect, or I dropped this, or I tripped over this, or like, she would do something to herself and apologize to us. And we're like, that didn't affect us. You don't need to apologize. You tripped over a rock. Like, you don't need to apologize for us. And so I get it. It's like when we did wrong as kids, we were yelled at, we were beaten, we were bullied, we were spanked. I get where all that stems from. That's something you have to break off and show yourself to just take a pause. So these are the calls to action. Is best thing is to take the power of the pause. Is something I love to do. Take your time with your thoughts before you speak them out. Before you say you're sorry, before you try to shapeshift into someone else's opinion, before you overanalyze, take a pause. Take a pause. Think about it before you open your mouth, and just think like, okay, what do I really want to say right now? Or is this necessary to say this right now? Maybe not. Write out the things that you want to start changing. It can be big or small. Don't limit yourself. This is where you dream big. Ask God to show you what those changes would look like, and just sit with him for a minute, and these things will start coming to your head where you're like, okay, thank you, and you can just start writing that out and letting him guide you. Don't skip this step. It's really important to spend this quiet time journaling with him. I have gotten some amazing things when I sit quietly and ask God to show me. He's shown me so many times the directions that I should go, and I wrote it out in my journal. When I go back and read it now, I'm like, oh my goodness, like this exactly happened. Or I thought that was going to happen, but no, he guided me over here. So he will guide you. Please just let him guide you. It's going to be fine. Don't let your fear keep you in the same place. Start small and start deciding what you want to do. So that is the end of this episode. Thank you so much, peeps, for listening in. We will have something really good next time to talk about. And until next time, I'll see you later.